Filipino journalist chronicles the Duterte administration's controversial war on drugs in a new book entitled Some People Need Killing. Joining us now from New York City is Patricia Evangelista. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. What made you take on this responsibility to cover the Duterte drug war?
Well, to be clear, I wasn't the only journalist covering the Philippine drug war. There were many of us from different agencies and different institutions, both local and foreign correspondents. Certainly, I wasn't working alone at night, and I certainly was taking far less risks than other journalists. The reason I chose to write that book, however, is because after about 2 years of chronicling who died and how they died, I thought it was important to find out why they were dying, why we were killing. The story that sold us the specter of illegal drugs, and that the reason that these people had to die was because they were less virtuous than others.
And you covered the drug war of the former president for Rappler. What was your daily life like, and what kind of danger were you in day to day?
To be honest, I don't think I was in any sort of physical danger. If there was risk to life, or at least an understanding of risk to life, it was mostly an excess of caution on our parts. Later in the war, when I was interviewing vigilantes, there was a reason to be concerned because they knew my name. They knew likely where I was living, where I was working. So it was absolutely clear these are people who kill other people. But in the early days of the war, it was body after body. And if there was any danger, and not just to me, to all of us, it was the mental toll of seeing your countrymen dead on the ground every night and wondering what it all means.
So you were surveying the horror, examining the corpses, talking to the grieving families. Did this affect you mentally, Patricia?
I think it would be unfair to say it doesn't. To many journalists who do this, to many people who do it. In the beginning, I thought none of us had any right to feel badly about this because it wasn't happening to us. That the grief and the pain of so many families were so large that we weren't allowed. I wasn't allowed to feel anything on the field. And to be fair, that's true. The way I covered is that I felt absolutely nothing on the field because I had a job to do. My job was to go to a crime scene, ask the same questions every night. There was a methodology that made it easy to ground myself. I would ask, was it a salvaging? Was it a drive-by? Was it a body dump? I would ask, was the killer a cop or a vigilante? I would ask, were the hands bound? Was the head wrapped in tape? Was the body stuffed into the bag? Was there a gun on the ground? Was there a sign beside the body? The methodology was important because it kept me in the crime scene, mentally and physically. And but I learned also during the drug war, it was important to stand still. It was a new thing after years of doing this. It was important to stand still and listen to the screaming, because that's when you found out where the families were. And then you would talk softly, go up to them, apologize, condole, and then you ask for their story. And then I would go home and play that story again in my head. So every night, that would be what happened. So does that affect me mentally? We're not cameras. We absorb everything. So you take what you get on the field and then you carry it for the rest of your life.
And as you continue to report on the Duterte drug war, and as many more people read your stories, did you receive any kind of threats to your life?
No, I didn't. Again, whatever concerns we had about my safety were always in an excess of caution. I worked for Rappler. Occasionally, there were online comments, online threats, but it didn't seem very personal to me. It's like someone sitting at a computer threatening everyone possible. It wasn't personal. What was great about working for Rappler, and terrible for some people, is that Maria served as something of a lightning rod, in that the attacks would be directed to her, which meant that those of us on the field would be free to do our jobs. And in as much as I didn't feel like I was a personal threat, I also was concerned that I wasn't concerned enough, or other people weren't concerned enough. It's really very difficult to work at the center of all of this and not know what's happening next.
And after 6 years in office, did the former president stop the drug war?
I'm not sure what that question means. The president stepped down. He didn't stand on a podium and say the drug war is over, or
because he said
threat.
In his campaign that he would end the drug problem in 3 months, and then 6 months, and then it never ended. The killing of impunity was continuing.
Yes, he said it would be over in 3 months, and then 6 months, and then a year, and then he said it the rest of his term. So if the question is the drug war over? Certainly not. There's no reckoning. The scourge of illegal drugs isn't done, as far as he's concerned, by the story he tells. And certainly it's not over for the families who have lost quite a lot in this war.
Your book is entitled Some People Need Killing, a memoir of murder in my country. For the people who will read this book, what do you want them to take home? What do you want them to feel at the end of the last page of your book?
I want them to remember what happened. I want them to see the names and see the faces, imagine the lives that were lost, and imagine the lives that were lived. I wrote the book not because I thought I would change policy. I wanted to make sure a record existed for whatever future generations might need as a reckoning. And I hope to honor the families who trusted me with their stories. What I also hope for people to read, for people who might be reading, is to recognize that we're told many stories by many people, that those stories matter. They're not just stories, that language shapes rhetoric, that stories shape realities. And when President Rodrigo told us a story, it mattered how it ended for him. And he said people would die. And a lot of our country applauded. It was just a story, but it led to blood on the ground. So I want people to remember that stories matter and that they can refuse the story.
Patricia Evangelista, author of Some People Need Killing, a memoir of murder in my country. Thank you so much for joining us on The Final Word, live from New York.